Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. You caught me while I was trying to pull everything back in. Whoops, because I was trying to grab the very handy dandy link that you will need for checking in. If you want an easier way to get the link, it's on the Discord. Welcome to the Figma workshop. How many of you all are tuning in from the GHW opening keynote? I'm suspecting at least a few. Thank you all for joining. We're going to give it maybe another minute or so for people to kind of trickle in. I'm not expecting a huge crowd today, but we're going to be putting on our show regardless. So while we're waiting for people to kind of trickle in, why don't you tell me what it is that you're planning on building today, if you're planning on building anything for GHW? I know this is probably, I think it's the only workshop for today, which means you've got plenty of free time. I want to hear how you are spending your free time. Me personally, I'm going on an absolute saga to go and get some Asian groceries. I live uh, in Wisconsin, which is in the United States, and we don't have a very good Asian um, marketplace that's nearby. So going on a little bit of adventure to go into another state, which is going to be about a 3.5 hour drive, just so we can go and get some Asian food. Hopefully, we won't need to take too many more trips like that, but I'm going to try to stockpile as much as I can. So game dev learning, we love to hear it. I am taking my very first game design class right now. And funnily enough, we're probably not going to be doing any game dev. It's mostly like board game design, which is understandably easier to kind of mess around with. But we got these really cool, like playing card size whiteboard cards, which is really interesting. Uh, Very handy for kind of like quick prototyping. I had no idea that they existed, but it's very cool to know that they exist. Anyway, I think that's just about enough time for everybody to kind of check in. If you haven't already checked in, feel free to take a look at the Discord, and you can check in there or this QR code. That'll get you all of the participation goodies that you can get for GHW. So without further ado, let's get started. Will we be doing vibe coding? Fantastic question. Not today, but there is a really cool Figma tool that is along the lines of, I guess, like, it's not really vibe coding, it's more of code generation from a Figma design. Unfortunately, we don't have a workshop yet, but if we have time after we cover this workshop, we'll see if we can dive into that a little bit. So before we get really started, I'm just going to give you a quick outline of what it is that we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about how you can get access to Figma Pro, basically. Dev Mode is one of the things that's locked behind a paywall, but as a student, you get access to that, which is wonderful. Super easy to get set up. I'll show you how. Then we're going to cover a few Figma shortcuts and fundamentals. And then we're going to actually check out and explore Dev Mode, building a quick project, which is going to be some form of a card gallery in the theme of maybe board games or like collectible cards. I haven't really decided yet. We'll cross that road when we get there. Okay, so let's get started. What is Figma? If you don't know what it is basically a design tool that is super duper cool. It is basically the industry standard for designing things. Before Figma was around, I mean, you basically had pen and paper, whiteboards, and maybe like a few other places that you could go to. But Figma really kind of works on democratizing, like making it really accessible, making design super accessible. And they do that by making it super portable, and a whole bunch of like other small things that they've done to just make it a very holistically good experience. But yeah, there's a few different products that they have here in their lineup. Figma Design is the one that we're going to be spending the most time in today, and it is the thing that allows you to design a whole bunch of stuff. FigJam is kind of like the more whiteboard version, so very low fidelity, less complicated, very stream of consciousness kind of just like brainstorming. So this is the kind of the step before Figma design, like actually designing things properly. And then we got Figma Slides, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a design suite around the slide experience. Funnily enough, this workshop is actually built in Figma Slides. That's why it looks so pretty. Very handy, especially if your team already uses Figma. It's really nice to be able to bring in other people, especially like people in the marketing departments, to be able to take advantage of this in a single place. And another really handy thing is that it's also very easily embeddable. If I remember to talk about this, I might need a little bit of reminding from the crowd. Um, but yeah, we can talk about prototyping and what that looks like. Okay, and then dev mode. This is the real star of the show for today. It's going to help us take designs to implementation in a super duper handy and easy to work way. There's a few things that are really handy for this. One is that like it helps kind of trigger a lot of workflows, like automated workflows, to make up new tickets and just kind of push things along. But that's not super relevant for us if we're like an indie dev. Yes, MLH plus Figma. It is a wombo combo of epic proportions, especially in the hackathon scene, if that's your jam, or if you're more of a GHW fan. Also a super cool thing. I really love using Figma. But yeah, we'll actually dive into that later today. But there's a few other things I need to get through in the slide deck before we can actually get to playing around. So let's keep on going. Let's talk about why you should learn Figma. It is the industry standard for designing. And honestly, I think I remember seeing like a big old chart. Don't quote me on this because I don't remember the actual numbers, but I do encourage you to look it up. As far as the market share goes, Figma has a astounding majority. Like it's not even close what the next highest design tool is. And there's a reason for it. It's because it's super easy to get involved in. So, if you are new to design or you are using Figma as a way to kind of just like get ideas on the board as to what the thing is going to look like, then you'll probably want to use like an existing design kit or like design framework or design system. They all basically mean the same thing, but basically it's like a collection of components and fonts and colors and just like little tidbits, pre-made things that you can just kind of drag and drop into your project, which makes things super handy for being consistent. So we've got 3 different major kits here, but other companies and groups and organizations and such also have their own, some of which are already like accessible to us. So we've got Apple's design system, which is wonderful if you want to do Apple things, or Google's for the Android side of things. And then if you want to do something that's both or neither and it's on a website instead, you can just use the simple design system. This is the one that we're going to be using probably. This is the one that we're probably, oh my god, I did it again. This is the one that we're going to be using for the workshop today. Just because like it's already installed, it makes it super easy to use. But before we really talk about it, we need to address the elephant in the room, and that is vibe coding. Vibe coding exists, and it's going to be here for the foreseeable future. So why would you want to learn design properly if you could just ask chat to build it for you? That's a fantastic question. The biggest thing is that design is about people, and chat is about whoever's developing it. Right? So basically, good projects are going to solve a problem for people. And chat does not build things for people. They build things based off of like text and their idea of what people are. So this was better rehearsed in my head. basically, with design, you can actually make it look like what it is that you want it to look, and it really helps you kind of just like grab that imagination and just kind of put it out in the world. But yeah, it's also a very technical tool that you can use and put on your resume. I know I have this on my resume. Yeah. Okay, so where can you use Figma? It basically lives everywhere. Not too many people I know actually know that it also lives inside VS Code. Me personally, I like to use it in the browser just because I don't like downloading more things, though I do actually have the extension installed in my VS Code instance. We can try taking a poke around that if we have time. But yeah, I mean, it kind of lives everywhere. Neat thing is that it also exists on mobile. I believe it's more so as like an interaction thing rather than creating new designs on mobile. So there is like I think there is actually a separate app that allows you to create Figma designs on mobile. Anyway, let's keep on moving. Let's talk about Dev Mode. Dev Mode is, as I mentioned before, it is a bit of a paywalls thing, but thankfully under the education plan, because Figma loves education, we can get free access to it. Now, this is actually super easy to sign up for. I personally signed up for it probably in about a minute, not to brag or anything. I'm just really good at signing up for free things. But yeah, I mean, these are basically all the questions that you need to answer. And then I just needed to take a picture of my student ID, upload that, and like literally within a minute, I had basically dev mode access really easily. Really quick note is that these education plans, they're kind of like a tag that kind of lives with your profile, and you need to add that tag to whatever project space it is that you're going to be working in. I'll demonstrate that a little bit more in just a bit. But I believe, yes, it is time for the actual fun stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of smush this together with a page that I have prepared in advance, kind of. I basically have a project workspace ready. I'm going to just quickly go back so I can talk about this education bit a little bit more. Basically, if you make a team, I've got like a whole bunch of teams over here. You see that some of them have the free tag, some of them have the edu tag. The thing that you need to do is if you're making a new project, like team or whatever, the education plan or whatever Figma plan that you have actually also applies to the space that you're looking in. And so if you're working with a team of other people, you need to make sure, and it's under the education plan, you need to make sure that everybody in the workspace also has the same education plan. So in this one, this is GHW from yesterday's workshop. We're going to be actually going in here and just making a different page. Oh, I already have this thing open, so I'm just going to close that. So yeah, you just saw a sneak peek of what it is that we're going to be building. But let's actually go through this tour a little bit more properly. I'm going to big up the actual workspace we're looking at here, just so it's easier, it feels less kind of cramped. As you can see, there's kind of 3 different panels to look at. We've got the toolbar at the bottom, we've got the sidebar, which is where all of our elements live, and then we've got this other sidebar, which is where all of our details live. Now the details will change dynamically based off of what it is that we have selected. If we don't have anything selected, then it's just going to look into the world. Okay, let's see what's next on the tour. Next thing is we need to demonstrate how to kind of move around. So it's kind of hard to see where it is that we're moving if we don't have any frame of reference. I'm going to go ahead and move that in. I'm using a laptop. So if you're using a laptop, you can do 2-finger drag, but you can also do space and click to kind of grab. And if you're using a mouse that has a scroll wheel, I really like to do this one. You can just kind of use the middle mouse button to drag and just kind of pan around the screen, which is really handy. And then there's, of course, zooming in and out. As you can see here, there's a little bit of a grid thing going on here. Each one of these grids is exactly 1 pixel. So depending on the unit that you're working with or the medium that you're working with, let's say you're working with screens, then yeah, pixels totally make sense. You can actually also, I think you can change the units to like real life units as well. Or I don't remember if we needed to do that or if you needed to do math for it to get like the pixel density and whatnot. It's been a while. Okay, and that's not too important. So let's keep on moving in our tour. So let's take a look at our toolbar. We've got a few things going on here. These are our selection tools. As you can see here, we actually have like a dedicated thing up here if like your trackbar is kind of really annoying to work with. The very basic tool is just like a grabbing tool. It's very easy to just kind of click and move things around. And then we've also got a scale tool, which is available under K. So if you want to scale this up and down, it's really handy for that. I'm going to leave it in the selection tool for now. Next up, we've got frames. This is for making logical groupings of things, collecting things together. We can also make sections. These are more organizational than frames might be. Frames are things that actually kind of exist in your project, and they're really useful for becoming anchors for prototyping, which is what this tab up here is for. I don't know if we'll have time on our tour to actually check that out, but we'll see how far we can get before that happens. And then we've got the slice tool. This is really handy for, oh, this works a little differently than how I was expecting. You know, I've actually never seen slice before. I guess it just like adds the nice dotted lines like that. That's kind of neat. And it's more of like another organizational tool, it looks like. Okay, well, that's really cool, actually. I'm going to switch this back to frames since I use frames most often. And then let's take a look at this next bit. This right here is where all of the kind of polygonal shapes live, the most basic of which is the rectangle, which kind of allows us to, you know, make a rectangle. And then we've got kind of the more freehandy tools. So we've got a pen and a pencil. These actually, if you are familiar with vector art, is basically, it's a vector based like kind of drawing tool. So if I wanted to make like a triangle thing and do something like this, like super easy to do. You can get some nice Bezier curves. Yeah, I don't really know what it is that we drew here. It kind of gives me like weird stretched star kind of vibes. I actually don't really like that. I'm gonna remove that. And then we've also got a pencil tool, which I believe is pretty similar. It draws another vector. Yeah, it's just a little more freehandy. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to exit out of that and delete that for now. Okay, and then we've also got comments. So if you want to leave a comment, it's super easy and it kind of scales like anywhere you want. So let's say, hi, GHW. And yeah, it's completely movable and it kind of scales so that it's kind of always relevant. So it's not super hard to ignore. Or it's really difficult to ignore, rather. And then the nice thing is that, I don't know if you noticed it, but when we clicked on this, or maybe it was when we clicked on this. Yeah, there we go. We can actually see all of the comments that we've left. So we can see actually yesterday's comments from 1 day ago, just right there. And now we've got today's comments. I'm going to go ahead and resolve that just because, you know, it wasn't really a meaningful comment. Okay, next up, this is kind of the powerful stuff. This is kind of like the command prompt for Figma, if you will. Like in VS Code, it's like Control P or Command P. If you use that a lot, it really helps you just kind of keep your hands on the keyboard as opposed to kind of moving around. The shortcut for that is Command K or Control K, depending on what it is that you're using. And it gives you access to a lot of settings, kind of like global settings, which is really nice. But also really nice is that it also gives us access to assets. So yeah, let's try looking up help icon. And it's actually going to pull from the design system that we have installed. Alternatively, we can also just like look up plugins and widgets and stuff. I'm going to be using a couple of these once we get to the rest of the tutorial and actually making things. Before we do that, actually wait, I think there is a section in here that brings us to it. Yes, okay. So left sidebar gives us access to all of the actual structure of what it is that we're playing around with. And then we've actually also got this assets page. Now assets include the design system that I've alluded to. Oh, so I was going to say a very, very cool word. I don't remember what the word was, so I'm not going to say it, I guess. But basically, yeah, design system is basically just a bunch of pre-assembled components and such. So we can take a look in here and just make things really nice. So if I want to just like add in a notification for some reason, I could just pop this in, boop, 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 and there's our notification. I'm going to delete this though, because we don't actually need a notification where we're going next. Okay, let's keep on moving along in our tour. We have the details page and the prototype page. So you'll notice here, if I don't have anything selected, we've got all these kind of like global things and export, which allows me to export this entire page of stuff as a few different formats, which is really nice. I'm not going to do that though, since we don't need to export anything. It also has access to variables, so if you're more of like a CS person, you can actually take advantage of using variables here and then change it once and then changes everywhere appropriately, which is really nice. Let's actually talk a little bit more about the prototype. So prototyping is very handy. And for the person who mentions some form of vibe coding, you see this thing that says make. This is kind of Figma's version of vibe coding. I'm not going to play too much with it right now, but basically it allows you to just make cooler prototypes. Usually the way that prototypes work though is you'll notice here that like after I've clicked this thing, there's a few circles that are kind of like popping up. These circles I could actually use to drag out to something else. I'm going to drag it out to here, and now we can actually map these things to do something. So if we actually play this, let's see what happens. I'm not actually sure what would happen if we just had it super basic like this. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't seem like a lot is happening right now. So I'm gonna actually just remove this animation for now. Let's see. I don't remember how to remove things. There we go. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Let's actually also remove that. And we're gonna go back to designing things. Once we finish our design, we can take a better look at the prototyping tools. Okay, let's keep on moving in our tour. There's a whole bunch more things if you want to check that out. Link is going to be posted in the chat, but it is also posted on the Discord if you want to see that. There we go, posted in the chat now. All right, let's keep on moving in our tour. Okay. I feel like I've been kind of going a little fast. I'm gonna take a quick sip of water. Get a breather before we keep on going. Okay. Yeah. Make sure to stay hydrated, everybody. That helps if you need to yap what it is that I'm doing. Okay, so to get things started, we're going to be starting off by typing up a text box. So I'm going to go ahead, select out some text. Let's see. I want to make, I'm feeling like potato chips. So we're going to make this like a potato chip, like card, the potato chip. So I'm just going to put a like generic potato chip name. This is kind of big, but that's actually because we're just looking really, really small right now. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, like a lot of it bigger. Let's scale this thing to be a little bit bigger as well. And now this looks a little bit more normal sized. Actually, instead of doing that, I'm gonna restart this real quick. I'm gonna hit F to open up my frame. I'm gonna take a look at some of the standard frame things that we can look at. Standard frame dimensions. And so let's make this maybe the size of like an Instagram story. No. Let's do like an Instagram post. Yeah, because it's nice and square. I think that's a good size to get started working with. Okay. Add some text in here. We're gonna say, oh wow, potato chips. The best chip. The bestest chip. Okay, cool. So now we got a little bit of text, very, very small. Let's see what else we need to do. We're gonna go ahead and make a rectangle, all right. Then we're going to add some text, some more text. Looks like it's gonna be more for like body text. I don't really want to type out a whole paragraph, so I'm gonna use actually an add-on that's very handy for if you're just like trying to get something out there. For prototyping, I'm going to use the lorem ipsum to just go ahead and generate some text. I don't know what this buzz thing is. I kind of want to see if I can just bump up the amount of buzz that shows up in there. I've got some faux academic somethings. Let's see. I'm going to make this a little bit more. Sentences per paragraph. Let's make this bigger too. Maybe we're gonna have like 3 paragraphs. How does that look? I think that might be too much actually. Let's make this 2 paragraphs. Make this a little bit smaller. Make that a little bit smaller too. Sentence length. There we go. Okay, cool. I think that's all it is that we need to do. Oh, okay. So I guess I can just refresh that until we get something that we like. I think this is pretty much appropriate. So as you saw there, add-ons are kind of like VS Code add-ons. They add a lot more functionality, which is super handy. Let's keep on moving. Looks like the next thing is to upload a picture. I do not want to upload a picture actually, but the way that you can do this, there's actually quite a few ways to do this, is we can actually change the color here to something else, or we could go to upload from a computer, or we could, I think this is just going to change the color to something that's within our design system actually. Yeah, that would just change it to something that's in our design system. So instead of doing that, actually, I'm gonna remove this, and I'm going to use a different plugin. We're going to use the Unsplash plugin. So Unsplash is a nice stock image aggregator. We're looking at potato chips right now, so let's look up some potato chips. Some cool pictures, some cool illustrations. I see some of these are actually locked. So we're going to take a look at these. I think, so many good options. Wow, so artsy. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and click this very first one, just so we can keep on moving. Ooh, that does look nice. So I'm going to scale this down. If you just like kind of drag, you can see that the image kind of can get a little funky. Like if you've done any web design with images, you know that web scaling is like image scaling is kind of weird. So in Figma and in a lot of other design tools, if you just apply the Shift key modifier, that is pressing down Shift while you're dragging this thing, it preserves the aspect ratio, so we don't have to worry about that as much. This feels really big, so I'm actually going to hit a few of these buttons to change the width and the height so that it's not so big. I'm going to do the same thing here. Maybe don't want auto width. Auto width was kind of crazy. Let's scale this thing down. So I think with a lot of numbers inside Figma, you have a few different ways of changing things around. You can change things to apply to like let's see. You can apply variables, which can come imported in with the design systems. You can also like take a handle and just kind of drag this along. So I'm going to do that. Well, like I said, I've already demonstrated that. I'm not going to worry too much about this right now. Let's see, is there any other numbers that we can look at? No. I'm going to just manually change this for now. Okay, let's keep on moving. We've got a picture in here. By the way, all pictures are also kind of treated very similarly to rectangles. They just happen to have a different background element. So if we go in here, we'd actually change this thing back into a rectangle. But I like my potato chip picture, so I'm going to go back to keeping this media here. I think, yeah, you can also actually apply videos here, which is pretty nice. No, I ruined it. I discarded the media somehow. Okay, so I'm gonna just remove this, and then let's see if we can respawn that. Oh, now it's a different picture. Oh, I kind of wanted that other open bag of potato chips. Oh, maybe it didn't show up because there we go. Okay, let's actually add this one then. I'm attached to this picture. And I deleted the wrong one. Let's try this again. Potato chips. Okay. So we've got this one. Scale this thing down. Pop this thing over here. Okay. So now we've got the potato chips. Let's see what else it's asking us to do. It actually wants us to add a frame now. We are way ahead of the curve here. The next thing it actually wants us to do is it wants us to apply auto layouts. So there's a few ways you can do this. I always forget what the shortcut is, but basically, hang on. I'm gonna make sure that that's up there. Oh, because it's a really simple shortcut. Shift and A. I have a tendency to just look for the side panel and just apply it this way. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It looks like a big rectangle and then a little square with a check mark in case you want to do what it is that I did. Let's see. So this is only going to auto layout. What it does is it basically tries to arrange everything in either freeform, horizontal, vertical, or in a grid layout, which is pretty nice. And this is very similar to like CSS Flexbox. It's probably implemented using CSS Flexbox if you're more familiar with CSS and HTML. Okay, so let's see. The thing is that to keep in mind is that this only actually works on things that are inside of the frame. So this unsplash image is not inside the frame. So I'm going to go ahead, drag this thing inside, and now it's at the very tippy top, which is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. I'm going to rename this from unsplash to image. Let's actually call this thumbnail. We'll call this the title, and then we'll call this the body. Okay, so now we actually have some nice namings. If you're like me, you're kind of looking at this thing and kind of being like, well, why is it looking so funky? It's kind of like, you can kind of see how it's like center aligned, right? But like, whew, that is a heckin' chonker of a header. So we're gonna actually just scale that thing down. Nice thing is that there's little handles, which makes things really easy. We can also actually change that over here with this thing right here if we want to make it the same on both sides. Right now it's 51 and 141. We're going to change this to like 50 and 50. So now if we look over here, as you see that this is 50, 50, and now the side padding is kind of really big. I guess we can leave that for now if we're trying to make this like an Instagram size thing. I guess we're kind of moving towards more like an Instagram thing rather than cards. Okay, you know what? I haven't done this workshop where I've scaled it to an Instagram size post, so we're gonna keep on doing this. We're gonna take a little bit of a pivot from what it is that I was planning on doing originally. Let's actually keep on following along this tutorial, and then I'll see when I can go off script and just start like making it actually look nice. Next thing it's asking is to add some styling. We've already done a little bit of that. One thing I do want to do actually is I really like having kind of soft corners as opposed to having these sharp corners that like what it's currently spawning with. So I'm going to pop in here and we can see these little handles. This actually affects the radius. So if we want to make this like a super pill, we can. I don't think I'm going to do that though. I'm going to actually use a variable here. I think we're going to do a nice corner radius. How's 8? Yeah, that's nice. So this is going to be like 8 pixels out and out in either direction, which is really nice. Okay, cool. I also want to show you real quick that you can kind of take advantage of this grid over here, this 3x3 grid. It kind of changes depending on the format of like whatever stuff here. So if you're not doing something that's, you know, like 3 center aligned things, you always got a few more options. This kind of changed the justification, I guess. Okay, let's see what else it is asking us to do. Okay, so this is where we actually start making a gallery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this section bigger. We're going to make another frame. Maybe we'll make this like a desktop size frame. We'll make this the size of a TV. No, that's a lot smaller than I was expecting. Okay, we're going to freehand a frame. We're going to make it nice and big. We're going to start losing our Instagram card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background color of this thing to be something that we can actually see. So we're going to switch this color palette over to the simple design system. After we click on fill, I'm going to scroll down a little bit until I find a color I like. Let's see. Nice neutralish kind of background color. That might actually be like a warning symbol now that I think about it. I wonder if we can add in our colors. Make it easy to see here. Because usually these colors actually have names. For whatever it is that they're made for. I don't remember how to do that right now. Maybe we need to go into assets. No, not really. Is under variables? No. Styles. We just tried that. I'll have to think about it. I could have sworn that this is where we would find the names for these. Yeah, let's actually look this up. Figma color names. Figma design system color names. That doesn't seem very handy. It's all about naming conventions. All right. I think I'm getting a little distracted, so we're going to hop back into this. This is a thing, I guess. I'm falling less and less in love with how big this thing is. I think I'm going to actually change this from an Instagram size post. We're going to actually even change this thing. So we're going to make this a card. So let's actually change this thing a little bit this way, a little bit this way. Maybe let's look up the dimensions of a poker card. 2.5 by 3.5 inches. I'm gonna bring this in here. I'm gonna, like, usually if you kind of just like do the V select, you can change the size of the box. But if you want to actually scale the contents inside, I'm gonna actually just hit K. I'm gonna scale this thing up just so we can see what that looks like. I'm gonna try to copy this aspect ratio. So we're going to say 2.5 times, by the way, you can do math in here, which is pretty cool, times like 100. And then 3.5 times 100. Then I'm gonna, I think this is how we, lock the aspect ratio. And now what we can do is we can scale this thing up a little bit more. Let's make this an even 500. Okay, so it's a 5:7 aspect ratio. That's pretty neat. Okay, I'm feeling a little bit better about this. Let's pop in here as well, actually, and change the border radius. Let's see, where's my border? It's because I had the wrong thing selected. Oh. Is it because my auto layout isn't actually the frame itself? What happens if I take this thing out? Delete this frame. Oh, that's what the frame was. Okay, I'm gonna pop this back inside. I'm trying to remember what that thing was. Okay, where's my corner radius? Oh, it's probably because I had the scale tool still selected. I'll switch this back with V. Click on this again. There we go. Okay, so we actually now have access to all of the edit details again. So I want to pop in here, add a nice big corner radius. So yeah, that looks a little nicer. I think let's actually try removing this corner radius and seeing if we can scale this image to be the size of this whole, like the whole width. So what we're going to do is, let's see, what's a way to do this? We can do this a few ways. I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask this to fill the container. That isn't exactly what it is that I was thinking it would do. Let's undo that. That was the width. I ask it to fill the container. Why is it doing that? Oh, you see that? You see how big our padding is? Let's try changing our padding a little bit. I'm gonna change this to be 0. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna change this to be 0 as well, which doesn't really sound like it's a good idea if we're going to be kind of like having all this text down here, but I have a secret weapon, and that is we're going to actually put this inside of another element if we need it. Let's see, this thing is kind of sitting tight. Okay. Let's, I think I'm going to group these two together. We're going to group these two together. That allows us to apply a more granular kind of organization. And let's reduce this padding a little bit. Now, I don't actually want this height to be that big. I do want it to fill the container. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pop in here. I think there's a way for us to make it so that the two perfectly balance with each other. Let's just do a max height. And then we'll take 700 divided by 2. Okay. And then we will push this thing up. But I don't want to do it manually because we want to make this a little bit more dynamic and programmatic. I might be spending too much time trying to make this a really nice card. I'm going to try for another minute, and then we're going to keep on moving with the tutorial because I'm spending more time than I probably should be. Okay, so let's see if we can do this, chat. Line this thing up with the top. Okay, now this image should be just about half of the thing. Cool. Now this padding in between things is kind of big. What happens if I apply auto? Okay. Let's actually apply... No, I just know it can't be auto. Let's set it to 0 for now. 0 padding. If we balance this thing out again. No. Okay. Still not a huge fan of that, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a rectangle in here. And then we're going to make this completely invisible. And then we're going to make it so that the height fills the container. Let's make the width fill the container as well. So this is going to be our padding. I'm going to slide this in here with our group. I'm going to apply another auto layout in here. Let's see if we can find something that seems appropriate. Thumbnail card. We've got an auto distance thing. And then we've got this thing, which is trying. Why is it that that's not doing nice things? Oh, I bet it's because of the rectangle padding that I put in here. Let's delete that again. Got the auto alignment, but it's freaking big. Set this back to 0. I don't like 0. We're going to put this maybe twice of what the other one was. The other one is 12, so let's put this at 16. Okay, we're gonna roll with this for the rest of this tutorial because I'm running out of time. I spent a little too much time obsessing over that. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to ask us to delete or kind of clone this a few times. So I'm going to go ahead and clone this. The way I'm doing this is I'm doing Option and then dragging. You can also just hit D to clone a few times. You can see that it's cloning over here on the left quite a few times. I don't know what this frame 1 is. I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to call this the gallery. Okay, cool. And so it's not super amazing. You can see that the first 3 or so that I dragged out, they're in different locations. But then the next 3 cards are kind of all sitting on top of each other. We're going to make it really easy for us to actually see everything that's popped out by applying yet another auto layout. You can see it's kind of picked up a grid alignment. I'm actually going to rather actually do it that way. And then we're going to push this thing in, and we can see that it's actually kind of really nicely pushing things together. We're going to make it so that there's a bigger padding there. Let's make this 150. We'll make this 150 as well. Why not? Okay, I actually rather like the idea of having a better, thicker board outline for this, so I'm going to add a stroke to this. I'm going to make this reasonably large. I'm going to apply another variable here. I made that too big. That should not be 315. I know there's a thing here. Okay, let's just do that. So now we've got a nice border here, but annoyingly we would have to apply it to all of these other ones. Rather than doing that, I'm going to delete these until we only have one copy, and then I'm going to turn this into a component. This is a really powerful thing that Figma can do. Components allow us to basically make clones of these things, and it just kind of trickles down. So let's say we have all of these things. This is our deep copy over here. So as you can see, it doesn't have any outline. Let's say we wanted to change the background color of this thing to be a nice darker yellow. So let's look for a darker yellow. Nice golden, probably too deep, honestly. But yeah, we can do that. And you can see here that this one didn't actually copy any of those things because it's not actually parent into this thing. So this is kind of a parent component. So that allows us to trickle down changes everywhere. Honestly, I'm sorry. I think that Figma is, it's deceptively deep is what it is. I think I went on a little bit of a side tangent, and I'm sorry I'm making it more complicated for you. We haven't even actually gotten to the really exciting dev mode part, so I'm gonna try to rush through the rest of this workshop so we can get to that. And then if you have any specific things, questions that you have about Figma, let me know. We'll see if we can cover that. Okay, so we have this thing. We have some copies that allows us to kind of percolate changes from the source, the parents card, into all of the children cards, which is pretty cool. Now let's say we're actually ready for production and we want to move it into developments. Let's actually move into Figma Dev Mode now. So if we click on this little bar down here, we can switch into Dev Mode, which is pretty handy. Now, if you're really bad at HTML, and CSS, this is going to be a bit of a life changer. I mentioned a lot of things about using auto layout, and the reason why we've been using auto layout is going to be even more apparent once we actually start doing things with the code generation. That's right, Figma has some basic code generation for styling and such. So dev mode, one of the most basic things that you can do with it is you can just kind of go in here and just click this little thing and basically just says, I'm ready to dev, which is really nice. And handy so that the developers on your team know what is actually ready for you to start building with, start implementing. But even cooler is you might have saw all this code that's kind of getting spit out over here. Basically, we can actually switch between different ways to represent all of this. So that we could use some CSS. I think it's really not super handy to just get the CSS. I like to actually just go in here and grab one of the HTML segments, or you can actually use a whole bunch of different other web frameworks if you want. So if you're more of a Tailwind person, you could do that, or if you want to do React, you can do that. React and Tailwind, you can do that. And there's a few different code generation tools. I like to use rem because that's a relative measurement for CSS as opposed to pixels, which doesn't scale at all. So we're going to use rem so that it actually scales really nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste the HTML for this, which has been generated right here. Copy that so you can see it's been copied to my clipboard. And then I'm going to scroll over to, I'm pretty sure I have, yeah, there we go. I've got an open index.html page over here. Pop this thing right in here. I'm going to save this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this file inside of my browser. Pop back over here. I'm going to just, let's see. On this page, I'm going to hit Control and O or Command and O. And I already have it selected. This is the HTML file that I had earlier. Click on this, and we can see that we've got our cards. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can actually see all of them. And thanks to the rem, we're actually able to scale this thing to different sizes. It looks like this font isn't actually supported in here. It wasn't exported properly. We can probably explore that more if we had more time. I'm afraid we're running out of time. I want to make sure I get through the rest of these slides, actually. So let's see. We've already gone through all of that. We've demonstrated how to activate dev mode with this little button down here and how to toggle things ready for development. And then we've also learned how to do the code generation, code generation, output codes. We've created it and we've done that. Okay, cool. So the very last thing is to take a look at, it's a nice little survey thing, which is very handy for our friends over at Figma. So I'm going to go ahead and toss this in here, Figma survey. Let me know how this workshop was for you. If you want to see more things, this bit on components is something that I personally added because I like to go off of scripts, and that is probably bad for me in my career. But I hope it was kind of handy for all of you at GHW this weekend. Okay, so now that I've officially finished my obligations, let's see if there's anything else that I can squeeze out of this little tutorial bit. I'm going to switch back over to dev mode. Do let me know if there's anything in the last 5 minutes you want to see in Figma, if there's anything I can show you. Otherwise, I'm going to try to just make this look a little nicer. I'm going to pop in here. I think I'm going to select the title, and I'm going to go over to my typography where the 4 circles are. I'm going to grab a style, which is inside our design system. Let's take a look in here. We see a few different things going on over here. I'm going to grab title hero. I think that's a little too big, so let's actually grab a heading instead. Okay. I think that's reasonable, but right now it's kind of not really, we don't want that alignment. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to select auto width. It's going to make it a little bit wider, which is nice. Okay, cool. So now down here, I'm going to do the same thing and select a different style. Let's just do that. Okay, cool. So that looks a little bit nicer. I think I just remembered where the colors came from. So instead of actually selecting the colors by clicking down here and then going down here and not knowing what any of these colors mean, what I was missing was I was supposed to hit the 4 circles. And then I could actually see what these colors all mean and what they're actually attached to. So let's see what this yellow is. The yellow is attached to a background and a warning. I'm going to just select this, change this to the default yellow. Okay, cool. So you might be wondering like what the power of components is if like everything's kind of a clone of this thing. How am I supposed to get anything different? Well, the nice thing is that if you actually go in here and manually change one of the elements in a child component, you can actually do that. So let's say we don't actually want this to be the bestest chip. We want this to be the coolest chip. You'll see here that it allows us to do that. And if we were to decided to change this to of all time, we'll see that everything, all the titles of every other card actually updated except for the one that we changed it manually in. Pretty handy if you want to make like a whole bunch of clones. Yeah. Anyway, I think that is all that we have time for today. I don't want to hold you any longer than you need to be here. Not that anybody is here and being held hostage. If you're being held hostage, I'm not sure why you're in this stream. I don't know how I can help you, but I do hope that you can get out of whatever hostage situation you're in. I might have gone a little too deep into that. I'm so happy that this workshop was helpful for you. Feel free to do that survey thing. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to dump that in the Discord chat somewhere. Figma is a fantastic tool. I've been using this for basically every project that goes beyond like 5 minutes of thinking. And it's really good because like I have a really hard time of kind of externalizing ideas if I don't draw it out. And so Figma really helps me kind of imagine how things are actually going to end up looking. But I'm glad I could help introduce you to Figma. You can actually make games within Figma too, which is kind of crazy. I didn't really dig too much into it. This prototyping bit is where things get really cool. Let's see if we can switch this to like a phone. I'm gonna just pick like that phone for now. Let's see if we can. You know what? I am out of time. I'm not going to be able to play around with this, but I do encourage you to check out the prototyping tool. Basically, it allows you to map interactions between these different things. I believe if we just did something like this, we could just hit play. And then if we click on this, it becomes like a super interactive slideshow. I actually, there's a program that I did where we presented our research for like a fellowship I was running. And I had my students kind of do their final presentation poster in Figma. And so we did some stuff like this in that. Anyway, sorry, side tangent. I want you to all have a fantastic and wonderful day. Have some fun at the mini events in about 9 hours or so, 8 hours. Happy to be of help. All right, well, that's it for me. I'm gonna hop on off. I am glad that you had fun. Thank you so much for coming. All right, toodle-doo. Bye, everybody, and hopefully I'll catch you at the next stream. I am running 2 more streams. It'll be on simulating natural systems in JavaScript. Okay, this is a terrible Midwestern goodbye. All right, bye, everybody.